Hello and welcome to Dim Lights and Stiff Drinks, the dive bars of Seattle. We are a podcast that visits local dive bars, historic taverns, and old drinking establishments in order to discuss the backstory and interesting history behind these places. But best of all, we are actually recording these episodes live on location. For this episode, we are at Targy's Tavern, which is tucked away in Upper Queen Anne. It somewhat reminds me of the Cabin in that it literally sits inside a neighborhood. It's another one of those you have to kind of know it's there, you can easily miss it kind of places.
Oh, for sure. I've been here a billion times, and I've never been here before, never knew it existed until tonight.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. My first time here,
went to
too.
School here. I've been to Ken's Market. I've been to Top Pot Donuts.
But you didn't know this place even existed. Right. It's not on any main drag or anything. It's just kind of tucked away.
Yeah.
Clearly too small of a sign.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been here, Jeremy?
I have not. This is the first time for me, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're all. What about you, Bob? Have you been here?
First time inside. I've driven by quite a few times. But
So
it's
first
always
time for all of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes,
Okay.
it is.
Well, as usual, we're going to get into the history of this place, but before we do, a quick howdy-do with my fellow crew, starting with our producer, the one, the only, Bob Trombley. How you doing, Bob?
Hey now, good man. How's everyone doing today?
Very good. Very
It's a
good, my
Bob
man.
Trombley production.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Bob on the ones and twos, putting two and two together, making sure it all goes.
Very well said. And, of course, my two co-hosts, Lou and Jeremy. How are you boys doing tonight?
What's going on? I noticed your intro. Only one hello? Are you on a diet or something?
You got to switch things around sometimes. Sometimes there'll be two hellos, sometimes three.
All right. Well,
Keep you on your toes. You never
Okay.
know.
Wasn't quite sure if you were really helloing me or not.
Yeah, see, I
Yeah.
caught you by surprise.
All right.
That's
That's
the
cool.
whole intention of this.
Yeah, glad to be here.
How you doing, Lou?
I'm doing good. You forgot to introduce the house band, Brad. I'm talking about the wicked surf music that brought us in, Satan's Pilgrims.
Well, let's dive into the history of this place. So the building that Targy's inhabits was built in 1902 and was constructed using timber exclusively cut and milled from Queen Anne Hill. But when it was built during when Seattle had many turn-of-the-century regrade projects, when the city excavated and lowered some of the biggest hills in order to kind of make the city more, easier to get around, easier to navigate. And this building was part of that whole project. It actually was used as the sleeping quarters for workers who drove horse-drawn carriages up and down the steep Queen Anne Hills while this project was underway. And I guess the hills were so steep at that point that they actually had to build a special counterbalance in order to help the carriages make it up the hill. And so the people that were driving those carriages, that's what this building was for. It was their sleeping quarters. It was kind of like their bunkhouse, if you will.
Counterbalance, is that like a giant weight that sort of is on a pulley?
I
and you
guess.
hook it to the horse, and
And that's what refers
slides
to
down the
going
hill?
from top of the Queen Anne to the bottom. That's the counterbalance.
That's
right?
the counterbalance.
That's what it. I wonder if that's what it references. And these were the
Probably.
workers. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
And also the source of counterbalance brewing.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Good call.
There you go. Good observation. In 1937, the building became Targy's Tavern and was named for a Scandinavian longshoreman who worked on Seattle's docks. His last name was actually Targle's son, but everyone apparently knew him as Targy, hence the name.
Okay.
So the bar boasted an open concept floor plan that we see today. It hasn't really changed. Still the same floor plan with a U-shaped bar that is still in use today. And I love those U-shaped bars. There's something about them.
Classic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
classic.
it's almost like it has like a diner look and feel
Kinda,
to it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
like
right.
You're like a breakfast diner. You go up and you sit at the bar,
Yeah.
order some food and whatever. But it's a bar, right?
Right.
So it's got that kind of cool nostalgic feel to it. Plus,
Yeah.
you get some fantastic seating area.
Yeah, yeah.
Daryl's.
I was going to say, I think Daryl's had a U-shaped bar
Yep,
too. Yeah,
absolutely.
that was another.
Yep.
In the 1940s, the bar was purchased by a husband and wife team, Fran and Ed Carlson, who would remain the owners of the bar for the next few decades. In 1965, the bar was raided for having illegal punch boards. Now, we talked a little
just
bit
like,
about punch boards, like at the Duchess.
Oh,
Yep.
my gosh.
We talked about this a couple episodes ago.
Yep.
And for those who are curious, we actually have some photos of what old punch boards look like on our Instagram page. So if you want to go to our Instagram page, you can see it. They're pretty cool looking.
And a little risque.
A little risque, yep. Some old pinup art, yep.
Prohibition era porn.
Pretty much, yeah. That was about as I think as risque as they got back then. So Targy's was popped for illegal punch boards.
Punch board again.
Yeah. Why is this punch board so sticky? So Targy's was popped for illegal punch boards in 1965, and the wife, Fran, ended up serving 5 days in jail for it. Now, the interesting thing here is that...
It's the wife that gets busted.
Well, that's the thing. So she co-owned the bar with her husband, so why was she the one that went to jail?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how was that decided? Do you think they flipped coins, or did he sweet-talk her into it?
I think the husband probably had something to do with it. He probably forged her name and some of the invoices for this gambling equipment or whatever. And then they do an audit. They're like, yeah, Mabel, come on.
Come on,
You're
friend.
coming with me.
Come with us. But I bet she held that over his head for the rest of their lives,
hope
right?
so.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
she must have. Like, every time they got in a fight, she would just be like, jail, jail.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you do 13 months?
No, I'm sure she never let him forget that. So she served jail time. But at any rate, the Carlsons owned Targy's until 1980 when they sold the tavern to Seattle bar legend Charlie Files. Do you guys remember when we talked about Charlie Files at the sloop?
Yeah, the sloop.
Yeah. So he owned this, and as a
He was an
recap...
accountant, right?
No, that was the guy that owned Daryl's. Charlie Files was just a bar owner.
Well, he is poorly named. He should have been an accountant.
Shouldn't have Charlie Files?
Yeah. Man
Mob
with
The last
accountant.
name?
Yeah, mob accountant.
But, well, I do know that he owned a few bars, including the Sloop, which we covered. And he owned that until 2011, at which point his son Patrick took over as owner. And Patrick still owns the Sloop to this day. But as
Patrick
far,
Files?
yeah,
Took over the business when he was 12.
No, he was in his 20s. So yeah, Charlie Files passed away in 2011. Then his son Patrick, which you guys haven't met, I don't think before. I've met him before. He's a really cool guy, and he's the owner now. But as far as Targy goes, so Files bought this tavern in 1980 and owned it until 1995 when he sold it to a man named Helmer Trestle. Helmer with an H,
Not Homer?
not Elmer. Helmer, yeah. I was talking to the bartender about that, and he actually corrected me because I had it down as Elmer, but nope, Helmer. Now, apparently, this Helmer guy was one of the surliest and most mean-tempered bar owners that anyone had ever met before. It was pretty well known that you did not act the fool inside the bar when he was running things, or
Not fuck with Elmer.
No.
yes,
Yeah.
you just didn't mess around.
Helmer.
Yeah.
Hell.
That's
That's the part
that's
you
a
need
hell
to pay
no.
attention to.
I actually found a newspaper article from sometime in the late 90s, and I guess the reporter arrived. They were going to do an article about this bar, and he arrived to interview Helmer. And when he walked through the door, Helmer had a customer in a headlock and was punching him in the face. And that's how the interview, like,
Oh, sorry, guys. Come on in. Don't mind me. I'll be done here in a minute.
Make sure to pay your bill.
yeah, so word on the street was that Helmer bought this place solely so he would have a place to drink. And apparently he would often kick everyone out early so he could just lock up and enjoy some drinks by himself and some peace and quiet.
I like that.
From what I read, it wasn't uncommon for him just like a few hours before closing time to just be like, all right, I'm shutting down. Everyone get the fuck out right now.
I like that.
And he would just kick everyone out, lock up, put the close sign up, and then pour himself a cold one.
Helmer's thirsty. Get out.
What's Helmer's last name again?
Trestle.
Okay.
Yep. Apparently, sometimes Helmer wouldn't even open the bar and would just instead stay inside all day drinking by himself. So this guy's
Looking
quite the
through
character.
window. Can I come in?
Read the sign,
Comes
asshole.
out
It says
and, like, gets you in a
closed.
headlock.
My kind of friend.
He was such a prickly guy that people actually went to the bar just to watch him yell at customers.
Just to get their ass kicked.
They would cheer whenever he 86 someone, which was
Get
said.
in line.
Yeah. And I guess he 86 someone pretty frequently as he had such a low threshold for any kind of shenanigans.
Wow. Sounds like a great guy to talk politics with.
Right?
And religion.
Yeah.
Well, you know
yeah.
what he sounded like? He sounded like the bartender version of the soup Nazi from Seinfeld, right?
No soup for you.
Yeah.
No beer for you.
No beer for you. Get out. Or kind of like, did you guys ever go to Bakeman's Deli downtown?
Oh, yeah. Bakeman's was.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy that
Yeah.
ran Bakeman's. He was
Yeah.
kind of like that too.
He
That was our
totally
hometown
But people
soup
loved
Nazi.
when he got grumpy with people.
Yeah.
Like if you were in line, you saw him getting grumpy with
Oh,
someone.
Good call.
You loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. That R.I.P. That's been closed.
So he was in kind of that realm.
Totally.
Except for he beat your ass, too.
Get you in a headlock. And
Mollywopped.
Charlie Files, who again sold the place to Helmer in 1995, remarked that, quote unquote, Helmer had zero people skills and didn't try to get along with anybody. Another local tavern owner, when asked about Helmer, said this: I've been in this business for 40 years and I've never seen anybody like him. In 2005, Helmer finally sold the bar, which I assume he had to because how could you possibly be making any money if you're running a business like that?
Kicking
If you're just
everyone's
always, if you're beating up customers and kicking everyone out and just closing the bar for the day
Get
so you
drunk.
could drink. I mean, he must have been on the verge of bankruptcy, right?
One would think.
But yeah, he sold the bar in 2005. He sold the place to a guy named Christian Wilson, and who
fucking
apparently
bullshit.
spent. I know, from
Helmer
Helmer
to a Christian.
From Helmer to Christian. Isn't that funny?
Wow. Turns out Christian was a bigger asshole.
No, apparently he spent a good deal of his ownership kind of sprucing the place up and redecorating. I guess it was a real divey when he bought it. He kind of put in new tables and chairs and stuff.
I don't know about that guy.
He eased everybody's PTSD when they would come into the bar shaking like, please don't kick my ass. Like, no, he's gone. Come on, I won't kick your ass.
Scrubbed away the chalk outlines on the floor.
The blood stains. In 2018, he sold the bar to its current owners, another husband and wife duo named Joel and Margot Stedman. The Stedmans actually own several local area bars, including the Duval Tavern in Duval, Pint Defiance in Tacoma,
Oh, nice play. on
which I
words.
thought that was a pretty clever word. Yeah, Pint Defiance, I like that.
Yep.
Larry's Tavern and Pogie Tavern, which are both
Oh,
in
the
West Seattle.
Pogie.
The
Oh,
Pogie,
yeah.
yep, they own that one.
Nice.
And the Magnolia Village Pub. So I'm sure we're going to visit
Yeah.
a few of those at least at some
sure.
point, yeah.
I thought it was pronounced Pogway.
Oh, the 4Bs in Ballard. Nice.
Oh, okay. Nice.
right.
Some late breaking news here.
Definite dive bar. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. So today the bar remains a beloved fixture inside this Queen Anne neighborhood. In fact, I would say it is the very definition of a neighborhood dive bar, and hopefully it sticks around for many more years. So before we get into
Amen.
Jeremy's segment, what do you guys think about all that?
No, that's great history. I love hearing, about the counterbalance and the workers and being around during the regrade, and
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And as far as being a community bar, I would say this is probably up there with the cabin in Richmond Beach as being this is like right in the middle of a neighborhood.
Of a neighborhood, exactly. Yeah, it's very much like the cabin. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
like your neighbor is a bar. But
Yeah.
there's a tiny little retail strip
It's
here.
a little
There's
bit.
Strip.
A little bit, yeah.
True.
Well, it's just this building, right? There's
It's a cool
maybe a
second-
clothes
secondhand-
store
yeah,
and
secondhand
something.
fashion store like next door. It's super cool and hip and
Yeah.
and trendy and neat little
Yeah.
little strip going
Get a
on.
knitted
Yeah.
cap and a beverage.
And you know what's funny is this was originally like kind of where the early wealth of Seattle went. Like Queen Anne's a fancy neighborhood.
Big man.
This is old money here.
It's
Queen Anne is old
old
money. Yeah.
but, this guy was not catering to them.
No. No.
Sound like he was catering to himself.
Elmer. Yeah.
Like,
No, I really want to think that if ever there was a place where a bar that would kick out patrons at random and just close so the bartender could stay and drink, it would be Seattle. That could like thrive and survive as a business. Probably not. I mean, we know the history of it, and it sounds like you didn't quite have the skills to kind of make it work. But
Yeah.
if ever there was a place,
Yeah.
I dream that would be Seattle, and
Yeah.
especially Queen Anne.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, he's like in a bougie neighborhood. And
Yeah.
they're like, good day, sir. And I dare say
the
if
fuck
they're flying into the gutter. Sir, you have the boorish manners of a Yaley. Get the fuck out of here.
I bid you a good day, sir.
I say.
Indeed.
A lot of monocles flying down the street at this point.
Oh, we got to see if we can find this Helmer guy. Hopefully he hasn't passed because
That would make a great
gotta
interview
find this guy.
if he didn't kick our ass.
A lot of smashed top hats.
if he kicked our ass, it'd be even better as long as we get it on mic. Oh, that's the fun part of this podcast, though, right? It's like we can look at the rich history of this place, and it's pretty fascinating on its surface. But if you dig real deeper and you fantasize about some of these people that we're hearing about, it's like we could go on for days.
Yeah, I'm adding him to the list. So far, we got Gustafsson Hellflower,
Oh, from the Blue
Doc
Moon.
Snell,
Doc
Snell,
Snell.
that's
Yeah.
classic.
Yep.
Freddie Steele,
Yep.
Cecil Payne,
Yeah, the
Payne.
Bouncer Twins.
Fast Eddie,
Fast Eddie.
Colin Harrison, Ole Olson, Big Wayne,
Big Wayne.
Charlie Files, and now we got Patrick Files on the file,
Yeah.
Young
and
File.
Helmer Tressel.
Nice.
Two Hells in there, Helmer Tressel and Gustafsson Hellflower. Both of them. So that's a big number, though. 1937, did you say, was the first year?
That's when it opened as a tavern, yeah.
So, that
that's
was
30 some odd years as a trolleyman's bunkhouse.
Probably it was.
I want to see a place in that state.
Yeah.
So
well,
what year was Prohibition lifted again?
1934. The
Okay.
very beginning of 1934. Yeah.
And that's why we're starting to find like there's a lot of bars around
Yeah.
Seattle that seem to have opened their doors since, and
Oh,
a few
yeah.
have stayed open.
Yeah.
A little
since
bit of a
then.
coincidence, eh?
Would you say?
Well, a vast majority of the bars we've visited so far have opened in 1934, as I'm finding
Kinda
out
like
as
a
we
direct-
go along.
a direct
so.
That's
response
Yeah.
the
to-
golden
Yeah.
year.
And
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
this place opened in 1934, but he was drinking alone in it for the first 3 years.
No. That was in the 90s. The Helmer years were in the 90s.
Back when there was a jazzercise studio right next door.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about what's on tap and what you're drinking, and we talked a little bit about food options and how that kind of has a subtle influence on the flavor, pun intended, of the bar, right? So we are here, which very common for a dive type of bar in the Seattle area. They welcome outside food,
Sure.
right? They don't have a full kitchen. Some of the places we go have had a full kitchen. It's a little different, but the laws are such that you can have a drinking establishment. You don't have to have a kitchen. Most of them don't. And
That's one way to kind of
bring your damn food in so we
skirt
can
that.
keep you here drinking.
Well, it looks like we're getting down through our first rounds of drinks already. I don't know how we did
Time
that so
for
fast.
refills.
So, well, before we do that, maybe we should go over what our first rounds were before we get into the
Okay,
second rounds.
Jeremy, you want to start us off? with
Well,
what-
I
what you
can't even
thinking?
answer what you're drinking because I'm empty.
Do you have the Stella Artois?
Well, I was going to talk about the Stella Artois. That was interesting. So, talking about what's on tap, and we can save that for a whole other segment, right? But that's pretty damn interesting shit. What I was drinking before my glass got emptied was a
Bodie, Manny's, Space Dose.
No, not the staples. And this place has got some of the staples. We'll talk about that, right? But Fremont Lush, which is another great, awesome staple kind of IPA, fantastic beer on tap here, along with some of the other staples that you listed. Not all of them. But Fremont Lush, a great, very hoppy, traditional kind of Northwest style IPA. And served in a Pelican Brewing Company glass, which is not Fremont, but still kind of classy. Kind of classy
Nice.
for a
Yep.
dive bar.
How about you, Brad?
Yeah.
You looks like you got a dark beer. Is that the porter?
No, this is a stout. This is the Cozy Sweater is the name of it. It's from Iron Horse Brewery. And it's really good.
Nice.
Really good.
Iron Horse, home of
Goes down
Irish
smooth.
Death.
That's right. They do. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is Irish Death from there? Oh, nice. That's a good one. It's a meal, too. I like
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Both of those are
a
meals.
loaf of half a couple slices of bread and one of those, and I'm ready to go back to work
Put
as
some
a
hair in your chest.
sheep farmer. I'm drinking whiskey, Irish whiskey.
Irish whiskey.
Yep,
Jameson?
on the rocks.
Yep.
Me on the Jamie, you on the Henny, Bob.
It's a good quote.
There you go.
Good quote from a good show. Okay.
And
Yeah,
we're
round
gonna
two.
we're
All
gonna
right.
let the house band play. We'll be right back. And
We all got a chance to get some refills. We don't necessarily have to go round robin again, but I do want to call out, like we were talking about before, some pretty good beers on tap. And we have mentioned this in numerous episodes previous, that you cannot be a bar in Seattle. Even the diviest of dive bars in Seattle still got a pretty epic beer selection. No exception here. We've got some 10-barrel, the requisite Manny's, like you were talking about. Actually, 1, 2, 3 Georgetown Brewery beers on tap, which I'm not complaining because I love them all. But you got to wonder, like, maybe somebody in Georgetown knows the Targy's owners or something. I don't know. 3, anyway.
they're
So-
like the mob. They just completely
You'll be-
covered the town. And like,
You'll be
either
carrying
you
our
serve
beers
this
now.
or
Yeah. So
we've
we've got the requisite Manny's
Either way,
for sure.
your money's going to buy our beer or it's going to buy our protection.
You decide.
Oh my gosh! We got the Iron Horse, which you mentioned before. Which
Yep.
is
9-pound hammer,
You
right?
do not see Iron Horse on tap very often, even in snooty bars.
Never.
Very rare to see it on a divey kind of bar like this. So very happy to see that. But also, we mentioned it
2 episodes ago, I think, Stella Artois, but not just Stella Artois on tap. Stella Artois with like the factory super fancy, super snooty Stella Artois chrome special tap with
I saw
the little
that,
blah,
yeah.
blah, blah, the European style with the hands pump. And it's like the real deal Stella Artois.
It makes it taste better.
And you got to wonder, like, with the clientele in this bar, how much Stella Artois are they pouring? I don't know.
I would say a decent amount. I would say
Yeah?
I would say not a bunch, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets poured definitely more than a couple times a night.
Yeah.
So the real question
if people
is-
weren't buying it, they wouldn't keep it on tap.
Is it the clientele that's attracted and knows and loves Stella Artois, or is it the fact they walk in the bar and they see this super uber fancy that, I might add, it lights up. The tap lights up with the Stella Artois
And you think they just
logo.
get seduced by the
And it's
tap?
right there by the
The
fucking
monkey
front
brain
door.
takes over, and
And
we're
they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know what I'm going to drink. Like, ooh, Stella Artois, that sounds fancy and snooty. I'll take a pint of that.
Tastes
There
like
might be something
Budweiser.
to
I
it.
love it.
And of course, the bartender's like, yeah, we're out. You want a Coors Light?
put you in a
Which is
headlock.
also on tap right next door.
Well, and it's also worth noting that they do sell hard drinks here, mixed drinks.
Yep.
As- with Lou as what you're
Yep,
drinking.
Uncle Lou's
So they're
drinking,
not officially
Jamie.
a true tavern.
That's right.
Not that it really matters, but, it's worth noting.
You
Yeah.
know,
Because it's interesting because some places do, some places
that's
don't.
a good point though too, because like we mentioned the U-shaped bar smack dab in the middle of this establishment. It's not a huge place, right? Small
Yeah.
place. There's no traditional bar like wall like top shelf with the liquors.
Backsplash.
Yeah. It's a counter like a
Yeah.
dinette style counter. All the booze is under the
underneath.
counter.
Yeah.
Top
Right.
all the top shelves, bottom shelf.
It's a
Yeah.
lot like Daryl's, like we were talking
Yep.
about. Similar bar kind of scenario. They
Yeah.
have hard liquor as well. It's
Yeah.
all under the counter, though. You can't see it. There's no like top shelf. We can see the super uber fancy stuff. I don't even
Right.
know what's on top shelf because there is no top shelf.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to take a peek. I see some Seagram 7. I see some Crown Royal.
And now it's not a sports bar per se, but I would say they have
No Pappy Van Winkle.
4 incredibly large TVs.
Or do they?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it-
big
so-
ass TVs.
Yeah, so come here
All
definitely.
of them with
Yeah,
the
we're right
sports
underneath
game on.
one of them.
Yeah,
Big ass TVs.
pretty much no
State,
matter where you
Oregon.
sit, you're pretty much
State.
guaranteed to catch a good view of the TVs here. So
Yeah.
And if you look around, you see something that's, I do have to say, is a little bit of a turnoff for a dive bar, which is
come
a
on.
coat of paint that's probably been applied within the last 2 years or so.
no
Oh,
tobacco
fucking
stains.
bullshit.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
have that grit that you sometimes
Yeah.
seek out.
Yeah.
What is cool
A little
though,
too fresh.
on the walls is a number of original Rainier beer posters from the 70s.
The running of the Rainiers.
The running of the Rainiers, and if you look over there, it's kind of like this fantasy-esque Frank Franzetta type illustration.
Oh, that's cool. The
Rainier,
tar.
the two of them.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Brad, you want to describe the running of the Rainiers?
That's a
what does
fam-
that look
that is
like?
a famous.
That's a famous
ad.
one.
Yeah, very famous ad.
Yeah, so that was designed in the 70s. Rainier Brewery hired a local ad firm, and they came up with all these crazy commercials and crazy advertising images and stuff, and it's from that era.
Rainier
Beer. Yeah, it's from that era.
I believe you touched upon that in your book.
I did a little bit, yeah. So the posters that they have on the wall are the original posters from that era. So that's kind of cool.
That is
So
cool.
they are
Props to
the
that.
running of the Rainier are bowls, but they're actually bottles of Rainier with
Yeah.
4 legs,
Yeah.
and
Brilliant.
they're
Brilliant.
coming to get you.
Now, every now and then there's like some fiendish Rainier collectors out there that'll just collect anything Rainier, and every now and then one of those original Running of the Rainier costumes, those bottles,
Ooh, I bet those go for
will come up on the market.
pretty penny.
Yeah, they get snatched up pretty quick, and they go for thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So, but
Wow.
I can't imagine because they're huge. So you'd have to have a lot of space wherever you live to like
house it. Yeah.
house one of these things. But yeah,
Halloween party?
maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
that would be a pretty
Costume
kick-ass
of the
Halloween
night
costume.
for sure. You're definitely taking away top costume of the night with that.
So
The world we
Lou,
live in.
not to put you on the spot, where are we at?
We're on the top of Queen Anne.
Yeah, can you tell us much about Queen Anne? What is Queen Anne?
Yeah,
They
we're on
call
the-
it a hill, but is it really a hill? I don't
We're
know.
on the top of her. There's the city on the bottom, and there's 2 hills on either side of it, the water. And then south, there's nothing. So that's where the old money is, on top of Queen Anne and on top of Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill's the cool hill because North Capitol Hill is the old money, and the rest of it is apartments and bars and dance clubs and restaurants are, whereas Queen Anne is pretty much families. Except for this bar where you can come and get your ass kicked by Mr.
Pretty historic shit that was up on the Queen Anne Hill and still is, right? Some of the stuff that's up here.
Yeah, that's true. It's but yeah, as we pointed out earlier, this is in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And
Well,
Queen Anne is,
I think what are we on?
Crockett.
Crockett.
Yeah, 6
so,
and Crockett.
So,
Yeah. 6.
so that goes back
Yeah.
to Crockett, who was probably one of the all these names. Maynard. These are all the streets around here are named
The
after
OG
prominent
Seattle
Seattleites.
Yeah.
Who,
Oh yeah,
paved this
Lower
town.
Queen Anne is Mr. Denny bought that, and so that's where your Space Needle is and your Seattle Center.
Hence Denny
your
Way.
Denny Way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Street Zero. Denny.
Mercer.
Now,
Mercer.
I don't know the whole history of it. Maybe one of you mofos do, but there is a pretty famous, what used to be an insane asylum up here on Queen
No
Anne Hill.
fucking way.
Was that on Queen Anne or was that on like
No.
East
You
Lake
wouldn't
or
put
West
the
No
Lake?
way.
insane asylum in the bougie residential
No, it-
neighborhood.
it totally uphill. I believe it's a school now, like a public school or something.
Is it John Hay or Queen Anne
I
Elementary?
don't
Used to
know.
be an insane
You guys
asylum.
I
are
don't know.
historians, man.
No,
No, there were a couple in the city. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but yeah, there were a
Are
couple
you referring
around.
to
Yeah,
Beacon
yeah.
Hill, the old Amazon building?
The Queen
No, that wasn't an
No.
insane asylum.
Queen
That was a
Anne-
hospital, but not a mental hospital.
Queen Anne
Yeah.
High School has been retrofitted into apartments and now condos, I believe.
Yeah.
The old high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually
that was
stayed
a
in
crazy
there
ass
when I
like
was a kid.
4.5-year project that they're still not done with.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice digs though.
Yeah, there's a lot of dough on top of Queen Anne Hill. In fact, my kids went to Queen Anne Elementary, which was an option school, which is a public school, but they were kind of like a Montessori almost model.
Yeah.
And you could opt into it, and a lot of people would like keep it as a backstop. Like if they didn't get into the private school of their choice, I'll send it to Queen Anne
Seattle
Elementary.
Country Day.
Yeah, so we were like 34th on the list, and we were like, oh shit, we're never going to get in there. And all of a sudden, everyone dropped off, and we got in there. And then we have another, one of our kids has special needs, and he went to John Hay, also on Queen Anne.
You know, and you mentioned it just the proximity of where we are, like smack dab in a residential neighborhood. We are tucked in some old school houses, some old school apartment buildings, a really cool residential neighborhood. But that's not uncommon for some pretty kick-ass Seattle area dive bars, right?
It's true, yeah.
Just tucked in these residential neighborhoods. They're not in these kind of, quote-unquote business sectors and segments and stuff. They're not in the kind of the strip mall. A couple of them are, and we've been to them, right? But the
And they
fact
tend to
that
be the older ones that have just kind of remained in place, and
Yeah.
the neighborhood's kind
Yeah.
of almost been built around them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
true.
can feel it. It's like you walk in and you're like, okay, this is a bar, but we are amongst, we are amongst the residents. We are amongst the houses.
Yeah.
We're in this neighborhood. It
Yeah.
gives it a really
That's
cool
true.
feel.
And it's almost like when you look around at the clientele in this bar, you'd swear they were bussed in from Aurora Avenue.
What does
Daryl's.
that mean,
I
Lou?
mean, there's no monocles and top hats. It's like the guy next to us has got a tattered ball cap, and it's yeah, it's almost like it's filled. It looks like a working class bar.
Is it
but
an
that is
any man's bar?
not a
It's
working class
any man's
neighborhood.
bar. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, good
a good
point. Like we
observation.
talked about, like the clientele of the dive bar. Like there's location, there's atmosphere, and there's clientele, right? And then what they have on tap.
yeah. And what they're playing on the jukebox.
Damn straight.
That's right. And
They just played some
we
Judas Priest.
Yeah, we just finished up some Priest.
So this is a
That
good
was
segue.
awesome.
so yeah, what we've been listening to for the last couple minutes, we heard some Devo, we heard some Kate Bush.
Actually, pretty as far as the music goes, one of the better bars, I would say.
Yeah.
As far as there's been some jams.
With the
Yeah.
exception of the Eagles.
What do we got just kicked off now?
Benatar.
We'll let that one pass.
Yeah.
You want to take a stab at what's playing now?
It's like hipster music.
Oh, Dolly
isn't
Parton,
it?
Jolene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
Classic.
So yeah, this is a internet jukebox bar, so you can go and see what the hot artists.
Before we get into the artist, though,
All right.
noticed we haven't been to a bar yet that has an actual jukebox. They all have these internet jukeboxes. So does that mean like jukeboxes? That's just a thing of the past now with actual
Dunzo.
physical media.
I haven't seen a
I think
jukebox that's
they're
like a
too,
CD.
They're just too
for-
fucking expensive, right?
Or
They're-
you know,
they're
let
too
alone,
expensive to
a
maintain.
45. You know,
Like,
It's kind of sad.
yeah.
Nobody wants to do it anymore.
I want to say
Yeah.
maybe the Luna Park Cafe in West Seattle. I know for a long time they had operating 45s as like
No
for nostalgia.
shit.
Wow.
They-
Really?
Yeah. At least for
That's
years,
rare.
years ago
Yeah.
they did. Yeah.
But I miss that because I miss
Like
going
what
to
the
a
owner
jukebox.
likes, and it's
Well, yeah, and the jukebox back when they had physical, either 45s or CDs, you had a limited selection. It was a good selection usually, but it was a limited selection. And if you went to that bar long enough, the jukebox became kind of the soundtrack for that
For that-
bar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That
And,
defines.
and
an
some of the
era, or-
jukeboxes were more like
You
hard
knew all
rock,
200
metal.
albums in there.
Yeah, some of them were more punk, some of them were more top 40, but it gave like a character to the bar. It added
agree
like
with
musical
that.
character, and you don't get that on the internet jukeboxes because you can play anything you want.
Yeah, it's like Spotify and a jukebox in your bar.
It's like the
Yeah.
Spotify, yeah. So
but
it-
still, you
it's
get
kind
a
of sad to me.
conglomeration of the patrons, what they pick, and what they
Yep,
pick here
exactly,
is-
exactly.
I already gave you a spoiler alert, so I won't ask. But when we go to the hot artists
Okay.
of this bar, it's an AOR bar.
AOR? What's
For
that,
those of you
Lou?
who don't know what AOR stands for, it stands for white guys with long hair playing electric guitars.
From the late 70s, early
From
80s.
the late 70s and early 80s.
Bands that, most of my album collection from that era was AOR
Go ahead,
bands.
Brad, Jeremy, Bob, throw me a couple names.
Okay,
AOR.
Peter
Art-
Frampton.
Peter
Yes.
Frampton, okay. Yeah, he's on there.
Jeremy?
I was not into AOR rock, so I
Really?
Well, just pick a name.
You weren't into Styx
You've
or
ever
REO
heard of Led
Speedwagon
Zeppelin?
or any of that?
Yeah.
All right. So here's what we got. Hard artists. Led Zeppelin, The Grateful Dead, The Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton,
I've heard of a couple of those guys.
AC/DC, Van Morrison.
So this is more classic rock than AOR.
AOR is classic rock. bro.
No,
You know,
no.
yes.
I think there's a difference. I think there's a
I
difference.
swear to God, where's the fucking guy to
Is
keep
there
this shit out
Blue
of
Dog,
check?
is there any,
Right, yeah,
do we got
he's
any
too
ELO on here?
No.
AOR to me is more like late 70s, early 80s hard rock.
Like?
Styx, REO Speedwagon,
Journey.
Triumph, Journey. Yeah.
Bad
Night
Company.
Ranger.
Yeah, it's all the
all
same boat. We're in the
Purple.
same. I don't have to kick your ass, Brad. We're on the same path.
No headlocks. And,
Leonard Skinner, Pink Floyd, the Eagles, the Beatles. I'm
See, I wouldn't-
feeling frisky tonight, little ZZ Top.
ZZ Top's
Right.
good, yeah.
The Doors, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
CCR
Okay,
standard.
So
yeah.
classic rock.
Yeah.
Wait, so the Doors and CCR are AOR.
Yes, they're exact.
Not in my book.
All right. well,
See that? Yeah.
All right. I can tell you all about it if you want to be bored, because I just read a book called "Can't Slow Down," which was about music in the '80s, kind of the MTV era.
Yeah.
But it started out with how it led up to that, which
But
was.
before we tell you about the 80s, we've
Yeah,
gotta.
We're going to talk about the 70s. AOR as a format first started because everything sort of trickled out of New York back then, and the big station in every city was the top 40 station, which meant they had a broad range of what they could play. So you would play John Denver and Barry Manilow, and then you would play Skinner and Styx and Journey and The Doors, and then you would play Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye. And then this new format came along, adult contemporary, and they just played Barry Manilow and John Denver. And so you
More
didn't have-
soft rock.
yeah, you didn't have to sit through fucking Pink Floyd to hear Christopher
solo.
Cross. You could just go to
Or Bread. Remember the
or
group
Bread.
Bread?
You could
Thank
just
God.
go to
Oh,
that and
God,
listen to your
yeah.
Seals and Crofts, and it totally crushed a big part of their audience. And then in the mid 70s, disco started popping up, and so there were disco stations that started, and that played disco and chic plus Stevie Wonder and Bill Withers. And
Speaking
so
of,
you didn't have to sit through Pink Floyd to listen to
thank
wait for
God.
to wait for a Bill Withers song.
Speaking of disco, I'm going to segue this into Seattle history and Shelley's Leg, which was Seattle's first hi-fi discotheque. with all the gear and the equipment, would actually have DJs come in from out of town to come spin records.
I'm sorry, what was the name of it?
Shelley's Leg.
Oh, yeah.
Shelley's
Okay,
Leg.
yeah,
I'm sure.
Shelley's Leg, yeah.
So,
sure.
which has great history itself.
Yeah,
Shelley, I forget
yeah.
her last name.
So you're saying basically Seattle invented disco? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
that was our
Everything came from
first
here.
hi-fi discotheque from traveling DJs from like L.A., New York, Chicago could actually come
Detroit.
here.
And that was down in Pioneer Square.
So we
Square.
didn't invent disco, we just perfected it.
That's right.
You could say
Well,
that.
it just arrived on our shores at a certain time.
We were welcome to it
Yeah.
at Shelley's Leg.
I think it was disco was more on the East Coast before
Yeah.
it got here.
I think we were a little late.
Well,
It might be time to wrap up, Target.
Yeah,
I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah.
I guess on that note, I'm going to bring us out. So, peace out. Until next time, cheers.
Yeah, this was a great episode. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing, liking, and following. Great time from Targy's. We'll see you next time.